at 10, Chica. Stop, don't even think about it. This isn't a weird Rule 34 thing. This is legitimately because Chica is a chicken, and chicken is delicious. Sorry, PETA. Even if she isn't a real chicken, the character is still meant to be a chicken, so by proxy, chicken would taste normal, right? At least in the dimension where the character originates from. If we subscribe to the many worlds theory, much how like you should subscribe to the channel, what a segue, but there is a universe out there where the animatronics that we know from the FNAF franchise are real-life organic beings set on the destruction of humans. And there's another where we all live peacefully. There is also a universe where William Afton is real and I'm the one fighting him. No matter what, Chica is a chicken, and no matter what you say or want to interpret it with your fan art, there is nothing that can change the fact that she is literally a chicken. Her name is Chica the chicken. It's chicken, chicken is good. For the most part. And at 9, Ballora. Okay, there is no real safe way to say this, so I might as well go all in. Cannibalism is a real thing that people partake in. It's not a thing made up for video games, movies, or TV. People do it. We know that. There are famous serial killers that have famously eaten bits of human flesh. And if Ballora was real, cannibals would enjoy a nice home-cooked meal. On the other hand, and this applies to all of the animatronics, people eat metal. There is one man, known as Mr. Eats-All, who literally would eat anything. Somehow he was able to eat nuts, bolts, screws, light bulbs, an entire plane. Not joking, okay? This dude was a powerhouse. He literally brings his own things to restaurants so that they could add it to his plate. He ate a plane, he would eat bikes, he will finish his wine and then eat the glass no problem. He would have a field day when it comes to Ballora. This guy had eaten 18 bikes, 15 shopping carts, 7 TVs, 6 chandeliers, 2 beds and a pair of skis, a coffin, steel chain, and a partridge in a pear tree. But he can't eat bananas because it will give him heartburn. Literally. Unfortunately, Michel Lotito died at the age of 57 of natural causes. Yeah, this guy ate metal and glass for 41 years and died of natural causes. This list is dedicated to you, my man. And it ain't Bonnie. Bonnie is a rabbit, because bunnies and rabbits are the same thing, so don't flip your crap in the comments. Anyway, rabbits, while not being as common as chicken, they're still regularly eaten as dinner, on a less regular basis no doubt, but honestly I've had days where my girlfriend has brought home rabbit that she cooked in class. The taste is nearly the same to me, but I don't have that advanced of a palate, but it's literally meat, okay? Food is food, no matter what. Rabbit, while slightly gamier, is also as common as chicken. It's honestly weird that 50% of the original animatronics were actually regularly eaten, almost as if Scott intended for us to make this list. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't eat a purple rabbit, but I mean, if it was necessary and I was going to starve to death, I would honestly not think twice. Especially if we're in that universe where the animatronics are real organic beings instead of animatronics. I'm speaking about if these animatronics were real and not just the, you know, how the way they are with the robot parts and everything. Except for number 6. I said number, whatever. And at 7, memory loss? For a kid who was more than willing to climb inside Freddy and also get decked out in Fazbear Entertainment merch, he sure seems to forget quite a bit about these animatronics. Gregory, while stumbling on his own name, may not show obvious signs of memory loss. When he gets trapped in a security office when Chica's outside the door, his only way out is to make a pizza using a robot. Now he asks Freddy why he needs to or even should do this, and Freddy's response is because Chica loves pizza. Of course Chica loves pizza! That's been her brand since the start, for like 40 years in this series. There have been memes about how much Chica loves pizza. They made a whole Mazer-size center because Chica loved pizza so much and they wanted to explain how she lost her weight. Gregory even catches her eating garbage and pizza, for God's sake. And he doesn't know that she loves pizza? How? How does he not know that when wearing both a Fazbear Entertainment shirt and shoes? Yeah, seems a little sus if you ask me. Gregory definitely should be venting. And at 6, drink clowns. Lemonade Clown and Fruit Punch Clown make their appearance in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, also known as FNAF 6. The clowns are basically giant bulbs of their respective drink, and they disperse these drinks with like any drink machine would, but this time it's coming from their body instead of some tank that nobody can see. It's slightly terrifying when you think about it, but it also makes some of the most sense on this list. The others may be iffy, but this one is pretty damn solid. Well, I guess technically it's a liquid, so I shouldn't be joking about that. It's a very important matter. Haha! Look at me go with my terrible jokes and horrifying sense of humor. Oh, you weren't laughing? Why the hell not? We're talking about clowns, aren't we? Clowns are funny and not scary in the slightest. I mean, I see a clown every time I go back to my hometown. And no, I don't mean because most people in that town are jokes. Oh boy, that got aggressive. I wonder what could have done that to me. This lemonade is great, by the way. Thanks, Lemonade Clown. Halfway through into number 5, Springtrap and Michael. Oh yes, like I said, the only way it could get worse was if he was being shipped with a family member that he ended up causing the death of. And here we are. The Springtrap x Michael ship is one of the most horrific things I've ever witnessed. And honestly, even talking about it, I kinda wanna hurl. And before you get mad at me saying William didn't cause the death of Michael or Crying Child, yes he did. He was the one who superpowered the Dreadbear animatronic and gave it the ability to crush a skull. And before you try using the whole, if someone holds your hand under a hydraulic press, it's not the person who made the hydraulic press's fault on me, okay? These two things are entirely different scenarios. In this case, this is like someone pushing me onto a fence that is labeled as a normal fence, but then someone came along and made it an electric fence without anyone knowing. In that case, the person who made the fence electric is at fault. Secondly, William, by killing people and causing his son to feel immense remorse, caused his other son to die. By killing people, he set his fate as being stuck in the FNAF 6 location, one that Michael felt the need to be at to ensure his father's destruction, which caused him to be trapped inside since Henry never provided an exit. And you wanna ship them? Knowing they're related. Y'all are And at 4, Shamrock Freddy. Being Irish, I do have a special place in my heart for Shamrock Freddy. He'll never come after me, Lucky Charms. Shamrock Freddy is a skin for the Freddy animatronic that appears in FNAF AR Special Delivery and was added on March 12, 2020, in time for the St. Patty's Day of the worst year ever. His appearance is fairly similar to that of regular Freddy, except being colored entirely green, as you can see here. Oh wait, that's awkward. Forgot I was on a green screen. Well, I guess you'll just have to imagine it. Unless the editor decided to put a picture of it to make me look ridiculous while saying this. The only difference about him and normal Freddy is the color, basically. But why would he be tasty, you say, with the confused look on your face? Well, Shamrock Shake. Duh. I've never actually had a Shamrock Shake because up until like this year I always forgot about it, but hey, everyone who has had it tells me it's delicious and hopefully they're not joking, otherwise I'm going to look even more ridiculous in this number. Getting close to the end into number 3, Potential Robot. The possibility that Gregory is a robot is still a thing at the time of recording. So let's talk about the random bits that make Gregory seem more like an animatronic than a human. There's the fact that he's literally smaller than a 4-year-old, however is able to speak full sentences and do literally everything else he does in this game, which seems like he's a rogue robot that's been active for a long time. He can also get all CRT, glitchy-eyed whenever Vanny's around, similar to an effect where you'd hold up a magnet to like one of those old TVs. It's kind of like that. There's Freddy's shock as to how he sees Gregory after getting Roxy's eyes, and there's also the fact that literally nothing else makes sense about him unless he is a robot. It explains why he's homeless, it explains why he's willing to kill, because you know, no moral code, why Vanny would be willing to bring him to William if he's supposed to be Crying Child but as a robot. It explains why Afton takes over Freddy and not Gregory if he's still meant to be Crying Child, and basically makes this whole game make a lot more sense. So, is he a robot? Currently unknown, but it is certainly a possibility. And at 2, Chocolate Bonnie. Chocolate Bonnie is kinda like an issue for me if I'm being honest. I'll lick the icing off a cupcake and hear it scream as I close my jaw around its face, but I would get a Chocolate Bunny every year for Easter and whenever I could get one for myself. Specifically, the Mr. Munchie that had the Rice Krispie-like things in it. Not sponsored, but I wish it was. And those rice-filled chocolate bunnies were some of the best memories I have. I love how some of my best memories I have from childhood are about eating chocolate bunnies. Says a lot, eh? Well, no matter, this kind of presents a crossroads. The chocolate bunny is an Easter skin for Bonnie from FNAF AR, but it's like, why does this thing need to be a thing? It's clearly chocolate because we don't see any of the robotic parts inside when looking in the hole on its side, but is it just chocolate? Could I pull a Scooby-Doo and eat my way out of this thing if it catches me and shoves it into its stomach? Does it have a stomach, or like the animatronic equivalent of one? I don't know anymore. It would still be tasty. Is it milk or dark chocolate? Finally, in at number 1, Toy Chica. Hey, mommy! Do I really need to say anything more? Rule 34, baby! In at 10, Springtrap and Ballora. This is probably the most sane one out of all of these ships, but sane does not mean not cringe. First of all, Ballora and Springtrap are not married, like I saw at least one comment, but seemingly multiple suggest in the previous ships list. That's not a thing. They're animatronics. And there is no evidence that Ballora is possessed, either by a Mrs. Afton or literally anyone, despite the novels having the fun times be injected with the remnant of the 5 original animatronics. There's no evidence for that in the games. And while Ballora could have been created as a surrogate mother or a representation of a woman that Afton loved or couldn't have or whatever the story ends up actually being, this is still all kinds of weird. Like, what are you people doing? Bro, do you realize that this is a serial killer trapped in a robot suit? Right? Like this isn't just your old run-of-the-mill ship. In fact, none of these are. To put it into a different perspective, you're basically shipping Jeffrey Dahmer with a robot woman. You're shipping Ted Bundy with a fembot, for God's sakes. Like, does that really seem normal to you? Because it shouldn't. In at 9, Springtrap x Matt. Now, I'm not quite sure what this is shipping because there was no way in hell that I was putting that in my search history. But when I looked up Springtrap X, this was one of the suggestions. Springtrap and Matt. Now, I'm fairly certain that this is talking about the Springtrap and the Matt from the Fazbear Frights book Bunny Call, where a video game designer named Matt ends up giving birth to a real-world version of Springtrap. But a load of people guessed or assumed that this Matt was intended to be a reference to Matt Pat of Game Theory, which is honestly pretty terrifying. But now, people have begun shipping the characters. And the only reason this is higher on the list instead of lower is because this is only my suspicion, because again, there was no way in any dimension or universe that I actually clicked that suggestion. No way in living hell would I ever do that. Not if hell froze over, not if pigs could fly, not if butterflies flew out of my ass, not if a dinosaur head popped out of my butt and ate my coffee table. No, not a chance in literally any dimension. And I subscribe to the many worlds theory, much like how you should subscribe to the channel, so technically there should be a dimension where I clicked it, but not this time. No sir. And it ate Springtrap and Vanny. Now, I'd like to point out to the jury that Springtrap is a serial killer trapped inside a robot, but also that they do not exist as of Security Breach when Vanny is introduced, since at this point Springtrap has turned into Burntrap. So, for this to work, there would need to be a load of shenanigans, since for Vanny to be created, Springtrap has to become Scraptrap, and then burn in FNAF 6, releasing his soul to possess the hard drive that gets scanned into Help Wanted, that then takes over our brains as Vanessa in Help Wanted. So, for Vanny to be created, Springtrap has to die. Neither can live while the other survives, as the Harry Potter prophecy says. So, like, how on earth are we supposed to ship Springtrap and Vanny when it's literally impossible? This is why I don't like these kinds of things, okay? It makes me think, and it just seems impossible. Like, I don't want to think about the lore implications of shipping animatronics. This is all kinds of cursed, and it actually physically hurts me. I feel physical pain, like someone stabbed me. And at 7, Dreadbear. This idea actually comes from the VR YouTuber Eddie VR. Amanda and I have mentioned him before, and honestly I love his videos. However, he makes all the FNAF stands mad by giving nicknames to the animatronics, like how I make them mad when I tell them that Springtrap isn't an animatronic because he's not. He calls multiple characters by food equivalents. For example, Mangle is mangoes, Chica is Kentucky, Springtrap is tortillas, and Plushtrap is tortilla's son. He also calls Dreadbear elotes, which is Spanish for corn, because honestly, have you seen Dreadbear's teeth? They look like they're straight up a fresh cob of corn. Like, he went through the Foxy maze and just started picking up corn and shoving it down his metal interior until eventually he became a corn. It's weird, and honestly, knowing that it's his teeth kinda makes it less appetizing, but that's why he's at number 7, right? Like, I can't explain why he's higher than Bonnie, because Bonnie would actually be food. Don't come for me, PETA. But I can't explain why he's higher than Chica, you know? Because I had to get you to stay somehow. If you see number 10 and it's not something that will kind of make you open your jaw with either excitement, surprise, or lust, then you aren't gonna stick around for something as ridiculous as this list. I had to put Chica first, but I don't know why he's higher than Bonnie. And at 6, Springtrap and Golden Freddy. Now, in the previous ships video, I mentioned how shipping Springtrap with anyone was cringe, but specifically the original 5 animatronics, since each one are one of his victims, and a kid. Golden Freddy is no exception. Remember people, since Springtrap is the combination of Spring Bonnie and William Afton, who by all means is a real person in their reality, this means you are shipping this person with the animatronic version of Golden Freddy, which is filled with the rotting corpse of Cassidy. Cause some consider Cassidy to be the one you should not have killed, and while those who think that are wrong, that would only add yet another layer of to this already messed up ship. You people need to stop this. The only way that it could get worse was if he is shipped with a family member that he ended up causing the death of. Oh wait, yeah. It's not on this list because it was too much for a whole number, but there is also a Springtrap and Crying Child ship that I think needs to be investigated by the authorities or something, because like that's not even like daddy issues, okay? That's mental issues. Plus, again, like the Vanny thing, impossible lore-wise. Halfway through into number 5, extreme measures. Speaking of which, Gregory being willing to kill Vanny at the end of the phaser blast room is pretty messed up, especially if this kid is meant to be like 10 or 11, which is what everyone seems to believe. This kid is easily able to destroy all 3 animatronics without a moment's hesitation and then use their upgrades on Freddy. He is willing to kill Vanny, like I said, despite actually seemingly knowing her, like we see in the best ending, and he burns Trap multiple times in an attempt to stop him from taking control over Freddy. So, what the absolute living hell is this kid doing, and how is he so nonchalant about this whole thing? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional when he has to go and talk to a destroyed Freddy. Like, dude, Vanny is literally bleeding out mere feet from you. Couldn't you have just said, like, stop Vanny or restrain Vanny, not freaking disassemble Vanny? I get that she said that about Freddy and it's fresh on your mind, but dude, you're not panicking about literally anything else. So just say something that doesn't involve a human dying, for God's sakes, especially if you know her. And at 4, Springtrap and Sans. You know what? I'm gonna say what I said last time I brought this up, because honestly, this is worse than almost anything else on this list. Like, why are you shipping Springtrap with Sans? That's not even a character in the series, for God's sakes. That is cringe. How the ever-loving duck does that work? There are like whole Instagram accounts that I've seen revolving around this concept, and I don't know if you're joking or not. Who thought of this? What made this idea come to life? How many recreational substances were you on? Like, Sans is a 2-foot tall skeleton boy, and Springtrap is a dead serial killer who's taken more lives than years Sans has lived. Like, not really, because Sans is like 2 million years old, but that's even more weird. Like, do you see my point? The balance also is just kind of confusing. Okay, it's like someone who's like really short married to someone who's like 6 feet. It's like a 5-foot tall person being married to a 7-foot tall person. How does that even work? What? Like, Sans would need an actual ladder to have a proper conversation with Springtrap, let alone anything else. Like, not even a step ladder. Okay, you would need like an actual ladder. I wouldn't even bat an eye if they were using one of the extending ladders that fire trucks have on the top. Yeah, this is all kinds of screwy, and besides, at that scale, he's below level too, so what's the point? And at 3, the cupcake. Do I really need to say anything here? The cupcake is its own animatronic, which I am correcting from a long time ago in a list about scariest animatronics or something like that. I don't know. We do plenty of FNAF videos because the FNAF videos do better than anything else on the channel. Like, we know we milk it, but they keep doing well, so we're gonna keep making more. But if you can't get enough of FNAF and love the series as much as us, click up in the top right corner because we have a playlist of almost 90 videos now. It's nuts. Over 13 hours of FNAF content for you to enjoy. But the cupcake animatronic is literally the only pure food item from any of the main FNAF games. It's literally a cupcake. Yes, it would technically in a way be sentient since it hops around the room in FNAF VR while repairing Chica, but you know what? The sentience makes it better. Make it more personal. I want to hear the cupcake scream as I devour its interior and delicious and sticky icing. Damn, this is really good lemonade. Yo, Lemonade Clown, what's up? And ultimately, in at number 2, Springtrap and the Puppet. While this isn't as messed up, okay, there has been an awful amount of fan art about this ship that honestly makes me want to yak. Firstly, this is William's first victim, guys, so like, why would you ship them together? Secondly, the amount of art that I've seen where I have seen them with a baby is too much. Like a literal child, okay? People. These are robots, and one of them is a killer trapped inside of a robot with no vital human recreating organs existing. So, why are you trying to make them have babies? Please, for the love of everything that is holy, unholy, persistent, illegitimate, dark light, whatever you want to praise, for the love of it, please stop. It's wrong, it's horrifying, it's one of the most messed up things that I could think of. However, it still doesn't top our #1 spot. And you'll see why in a minute. I can't handle this. Why? Why would you do this? This was originally going to be #1. But I just didn't want to give the people who do ship this the satisfaction of it being on the top of a list. Because even though that would mean that it's the cringiest ship of them all, they ship the puppet in Springtrap, so clearly they can't understand logic and they would just see #1 and be happy. And finally, in at #1, Springtrap X Reader. This feels like a personal attack if I'm being frankly honest, because you know what, if I read one of these I would have been the reader and I don't want that to happen. #1. This was the #1 search when I looked up Springtrap X, okay, Springtrap X Reader, and I don't even want to know how that works. Like, I know how it works, but I don't want to know how someone reading a fanfic would end up falling in love with Springtrap, a literal animatronic man serial killer hybrid. What the everlasting sweet holy Jesus is going on with this community? These are the kinds of people who send Polaroids to serial killers who are in prison for life. I don't understand it anymore. I need to take a shower, sit on the ground, and cry for the entire weekend, because this is just what? How does one even come up with the concept for falling in love with an animatronic man hybrid? If it was Chica, I'd understand. But Springtrap, he is one of the most Rule 34 animatronics out there for seemingly no reason, because I just want death now. The fact that people are falling in love with William Afton's filleted body stuck with a bunch of robotic parts and I can't get a girl to stick around for more than a couple days is pretty damn ridiculous. Maybe I should finally cave and let this series turn me into the maniac I'm probably going to become, because apparently they get all the girls. In at 10, Freddy. The relationship with Freddy here is a very interesting but weird one, I'm going to have to admit. It's like the two characters, Gregory and Freddy, are brothers, but my concern is why Gregory is so confident that he wouldn't get caught, that he would crawl inside of Freddy. Like, all the other animatronics have been programmed to track you down, so why would he think that Freddy was any different, especially after parts in service, when Freddy could have easily been restored to factory settings or something like that. His trust in Freddy was so odd that I was certain we'd get betrayed by him at the end of the game, or in one of the endings, but no, every ending ends with Freddy staying by our side, even if it destroys him in the process. Gregory's trust and relationship with Shamrock Freddy is certainly a weird thing. In at 9, Homeless. The fact that Gregory also appears to be homeless is an entirely other thing. Like, normally, if a child is homeless or an orphan, he'd be taken to an orphanage or to family to stay with. Yet somehow, this child has been able to avoid every form of law enforcement that's noticed him, or just avoided detection altogether, and that seems fairly insane to me. However, these are also the police that couldn't find the original 5 missing children's bodies after the animatronics were literally leaking blood, but that's aside the point. You'd think that this kid, after being locked in a Pizzaplex overnight, would be willing to go to an orphanage to make sure that he was safe, because, you know, a psychopathic killer bunny was after you for 6 hours. But no. My question is, why did Gregory just go and why did he hide in the Pizzaplex if he was really homeless? I'm sure that Freddy could have kept him in his green room and just let him sleep. Or hell, let Gregory sleep in his stomach while Freddy made sure that he was getting to the recharge stations every hour like he needed to normally. It just seems like it could have been avoided. And it should have been avoided. And at 8, Height. Now, Gregory's height compared to his age has always been something that's bothered me. So, to really calculate how tall Gregory is, I did a good old pixel measurement off the Funko statue of Gregory and Freddy. Now, assuming that Glamrock Freddy's height is the same as Rockstar Freddy, which ends up being around 6.1 feet, which is, let's be honest, going to give Gregory the best chance here, that means that Freddy's 570 pixels in this instance, for how I was doing it, ends up being 6.1 feet. The opening that Gregory hides in, when being generous with my counting, was 118 pixels tall, averaging out to around 8.3 pixels per inch. 118 pixels, which keep in mind was generous, ends up equaling to about 14.21 inches or 1.18 feet. Going on various forums about children's car seats, I learned that the torso length of kids, while greatly varying, does end up being larger than 14.21 inches on average. Even a 4-year-old ended up having a torso of 15 inches. So Gregory ends up fitting his entire torso into the cavity with room to spare. I double checked the measurements because that just seemed off to me, and it still worked out properly. So Gregory's torso is smaller than that of a 4-year-old. So like, what the is going on here? And at 7, Springtrap and Mangle. Springtrap and Mangle is one of the ships that was suggested the most in the comments of Cringey FNAF ships, and I can see why. Firstly, what the hell? Okay, why would you even consider these two to be a good pairing? Second, isn't Mangle possessed by a dog? Like, didn't we settle on this? Like, William used Mangle and Susie's dog as like a remnant experiment to see if he could actually get robots to be possessed? Or have we forgotten about that for some reason? And I mean, like, a literal animal as well. Like, not he a dog, like he's literally a dog. Like, this is borderline Beauty and the Beast kind of thing going on here. Like, what the living f are you people thinking? We're shipping a serial killer who only kills kids and a goddamn actual animal possessing an animatronic. Like, I don't know what's going on anymore. Why are we like this? This makes me want to actually leave the community and stop making FNAF videos. Like, why is this a thing? I don't want to be associated with this. So, because of that, we're moving on. And at 6, therapy. Gregory might have actually been going to therapy, but we're not certain if this was actually the case. This is possible though thanks to the 16 retro CDs that can be found towards the end of the game, that can be played with a CD player in the hidden sister location room. The retro CDs require Roxanne's eye upgrade on Shamrock Freddy. Out of all 16 tapes though, half of them are for a patient labeled with the numbers 4-6. The other 8 are for Vanessa, however these are marked with the number 7-1. Patient 46 is very odd, never responding with words and never even being named. Some assume that this could be Vanny, however if that were the case, they wouldn't have another designation for her since they just think it's Vanessa. The issue also arises that they're being talked to as if they were a child, which would indicate Gregory. But only people associated with the company end up being evaluated by the shrink. So how could Gregory be associated with this company but not have a guest profile and be wiped from the hard drive? Client 46 also had their last 3 therapists disappear, with one of them turning up dead, and they don't really seem to mind, which lines up with Gregory being willing to kill Vanny in the phaser blast ending. So, maybe it is him. Halfway through at number 5, Gumball Swivelhands. Gumball Swivelhands is one of the FNAF 6 animatronics obtained at Stan's Budget Tech for $125 of in-game currency, obviously. Could you imagine if it was real money, like this game was just gonna be one giant cash grab like any mobile game or EA game? Well, Gumball is literally what he sounds like, a gumball machine with a face and rotating hands, which gives it its name. He has a propeller hat and kinda looks like he just drank a gallon of paint. His chest is a gumball dispenser and his head is a bowl full of gumballs colored red, green, blue, purple, yellow, and orange. And from the looks, pink, but it's not listed on the wiki, so that could just be the light reflecting off the animatronic. I'm not entirely sure. I saw pink. I could just be going crazy. Other than the dispenser and the head and arms, Gumball doesn't really have much of a body, only being supported by a pole like any other gumball dispenser. Talk about having a pole up your am I right? In at 4, Vanessa. Like I just mentioned, his relationship with Vanessa also seemingly makes no sense. We're willing to kill her in one ending, she kills us in another, but if we free her from William's control, she ends up taking us out for ice cream, and we sit on a hill with Shamrock Freddy's head, no big deal. Like, this lady just spent 6 hours trying to kill you, bro. You think that it would be a little more difficult to just go out and chill with her, even if she did offer you ice cream? Like, would you get into her unmarked van if she offered you ice cream? I doubt it. So like, why do you think this is a good idea? It seems like they're related, or at least know each other somehow, but no connection prior to this has ever been established. So like, what the absolute living hell? And Gregory isn't mentioned in Vanessa's therapy sessions and vice versa. Vanessa isn't mentioned to Gregory in those sessions, if those sessions are for Gregory at least. But even if they are Gregory's, who made him associated with the company? It could have been Vanessa, but wouldn't they have ended up mentioning her odd behavior or asked Vanessa about her younger brother or foster brother or whatever the hell he is? Exactly. This is King 100% certified weird. Getting close to the end in at number 3, Springtrap and Baby. This is even worse than the Michael one, because not only is Springtrap again the father of the girl possessing Baby and the direct cause of her death, But this girl is also knee-high to a grasshopper at the time of her death. Do you realize how absolutely disgusting that is? When I looked up Springtrap X, as I was doing for most of these numbers, this is one of the first ones that came up. And you know what? That's just wrong. This is shameful. It's even worse than the Michael one. I'm not even joking. Who on God's green earth thought that this was a good idea? And before you defend yourself saying it's the character of Baby, firstly, William designed Baby to appeal to his daughter. Secondly, the only version of the Baby character that we know of is the one that Elizabeth is possessing. I feel like everyone who ships this needs a long, hard talk with Chris Hansen and that Russian guy on TikTok who is catfishing adults with a 14-year-old profile and then scaring them so bad they never did it again. Like, holy sweet Jesus, this is messed up. This is one of the two things that I hate the most in the world, and I don't even want to think about how people can actually be shipping this for real. So we're moving on. That's not my, I'm mad about this. This is, I'm mad. Penultimately, in at number 2, can drive. Gregory being able to drive the Fazbear van in the van ending is probably one of the biggest WTF moments in this entire game for me. Like, this kid is able to hide in baby strollers and can fit his torso into a 14-inch hole, but is also able to press the pedals on a van, not even a car, but like an actual van. How the living hell is that possible? I guess perhaps he put like a brick on the gas pedal, but that seems like it would be an even worse idea and not very effective, depending on the brick. Like, how the living hell was Gregory able to drive that truck, or even know how to drive it? And how did Freddy allow that? Or like all his safety protocols off or something? Like, what the absolute living hell do we think is going on here? Because I have no clue. Gregory driving a car is 9 out of 10 on the weird scale, and honestly, in my opinion, King 100% certified weird. Like, who the thought that this made sense, and then didn't explain to us how he's driving the van? God damn it. And finally, in at number 1, knowledge. You know what I value more than the cars in my garage? Knowledge. Finally, the knowledge that this kid has exceeds even some of my own. This kid is the size of a 4-year-old, can fit inside Freddy, baby strollers, and various other small areas around the Pizzaplex. He's too small to go driving in one of the go-karts alone, but he knows how to restart generators, operate a trash compactor, start and drive a car, as well as identify a car battery, connect the jumper cables on a car battery properly, and then use those to fix Freddy's whole recharge every hour issue. How the living hell does that make any sense? And how do they solve that issue in the true ending? Because Freddy is still going to need to recharge every hour, and they don't have a van this time around. So how do Freddy and Gregory make it to the hill without Freddy needing to recharge? Or how do they solve that issue? This kid knows more words than I do, but somehow is still the size of a 4-year-old, maybe even smaller. No, it makes absolutely no sense. And this kid's weird superpower is what makes this game so confusing. It really only makes sense if he's a robot that was supposed to mimic a toddler who's been operational for decades and has been learning this whole time. That's the only way that this makes any sense to me. In at 10, breaking and entering. This kid is known for breaking into the Pizzaplex, as we learn through the therapy CDs that you can find at the end of the game. The ones revolving around Client 46 are certainly intended to be Gregory, and every time he breaks in, he ends up getting caught on camera or by technicians or someone working there. Enough times to actually mention it to his therapist, who then brings it up with Gregory. Breaking and entering would actually be what he'd be charged with if he wasn't under 12 and seemingly could actually get caught. But despite a few witnesses, the cameras never get a solid shot of him. Probably due to Vanny, since the camera was distorted when talking to something with bunny ears. I originally thought this distortion could be Gregory being a robot. However, it was pointed out to me in the comments of the Gregory is in therapy theory video that the distortion was most likely due to Vanny. And at 9, trespassing. Okay, so while yes, he does break into the Pizzaplex, he also ends up trespassing the entirety of the game. That's literally the premise behind this game. Gregory is trapped in there after it's closed, which instantly makes it trespassing. Like how you aren't supposed to stay overnight in a Walmart like people used to claim they were doing in YouTube videos. Yeah, well, if they actually did that, it's trespassing. And so with this, he gets told to leave multiple times, and the security guard is at least seemingly trying to help him get home. At least legally speaking, she is. So assuming he ends up getting caught, he could be charged, although with everything else that happened, I don't think they'd actually end up charging him. But he even goes into restricted sections of the Pizzaplex, like where we find the true ending and where we go after we crush Chica. So yeah, he's definitely trespassing in the entirety of this game. Ironically, he only ends up getting killed when he stops. And at 8, steals security badges. Not only is this just like a stealthy kid, he's also a thief. This guy steals so many things from the Pizzaplex, like not to mention all the little gift boxes you can find around. He also steals all the security badges that end up getting him level 7 clearance as a 6-year-old or however old he is. It's really unclear because he can't ride the go-karts alone and he can fit in Freddy's chest cavity but can also speak full sentences with proper grammar and stuff. No idea how old he is, but he's still able to gain level 7 clearance. That's ridiculous. I don't think I would technically count it as impersonating a security guard because he's not really doing that, but that is absolutely stealing. And this isn't the only time too. He steals more than just some prizes and some badges. It gets even worse than just stealing. Like worse in both the vein of the severity of the crime and in general the severity of the stealing. And it's 7, Chica and me. I mean, this was just a meme for me, in all honesty. This is just a number for me. I mean, to go back to the Tastiest Animatronics video, that video was all for me to make a joke about how toy Chica was tasty. People have drawn fan art where I am posing with Chica on my lap. I make countless jokes about how Chica and I are the only true FNAF ship that you should be shipping, and it's true. Chica and me is one of the most iconic FNAF memes for me. This is like the best meme in my mind, because Chica's my girl, okay? So stay away. Eddie VR, back up, alright? Chica's mine. You can have Roxy. I don't care about Roxy. You can have Roxy. Okay? Fight for her with Juicy or something. Because, like, Chica is the only robotic female who wants me. And I'm not giving that up. Screw what I wrote in the script. It's not happening. And it's 6, resisting arrest. So while most reports of resisting arrests are exaggerated, when it comes to Gregory, I don't really think it is. This man literally escapes the lost and found room while the police are supposed to be on their way. Yes, Vanny is coming to kill us, but if you think about it, you can escape even before we are aware of Vanny's presence, meaning that we are actively resisting arrest, or as close to arrest as it can be. Technically, if we look at it in a certain way, it could be considered a citizen's arrest. And I know that it's not how it would work in real life, okay? So cool your jets before you comment. Wait, you already did comment? You were complaining about an earlier number? Wow. Who cares if it's not how things would work in the real world? This is a game! Afton wouldn't work like he does in the real world. Possession doesn't exist in the real world. So just like cool it, okay? Gregory is resisting arrest for breaking out of the lost and found room, and he also stole a screwdriver that he uses to do it. Plus, removing vent covers could also be considered. Halfway through and at number 5, Swiggity Swooty. Foxy in FNAF 1 was quite the fast boy. Foxy is unique in the way that he will emerge from Pirate's Cove faster or slower depending on how often the player looks at that specific camera. If the player opens the camera too little, he will emerge faster until he has actually left the cove. Once he does, he runs down the West Hall and into the office. However, the scene of him running on the camera instantly made its way into FNAF fame since we all started making jokes about him running for that birthday cake. And no, I don't mean the kind with candles, batter, and icing. The Swiggity Swooty coming for that booty meme itself was actually separate to running Foxy, but the two ended up combining into one of the most iconic memes of all time, at least in FNAF verse fan world thing. And you know what, recently that's how I'm reacting if I see that Chica KFC double bucket booty. So I understand you, Foxy. I get you. Or maybe he was just trying to run away from Roxy's toxic ass. In it for fraud. Technically speaking, Gregory also commits fraud by getting into the Pizzaplex and the daycare center. The definition of fraud is, quote, wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain. And he was personally gaining from using that Mr. Hippo magnet on the ticket machine and getting into the Pizzaplex for free. So within the first 25 minutes of the game, we're already committing multiple crimes. And if the magnet messed with the machine even more, then we end up committing at least 3 different crimes within the first 25 minutes. Theft, fraud, and vandalism if the machine gets messed up, not to mention the whole trespassing and breaking and entering thing. Yeah, Gregory has quite the rap sheet after this game. Even within the first hour of the game, this guy has some serious issues. Maybe this kid isn't Afton, considering how like nonchalant he is with committing so many freaking crimes. Getting close to the end in number 3, the man behind the slaughter. The man behind the slaughter refers to a series of iconic memes referencing a line from a fan-made Five Nights at Freddy's song, It's Been So Long, by the living tombstones. The line of "the man behind the slaughter" describes the main antagonist of the series, William Afton, you know, the purple guy? Yeah. With memes referencing the character in one way or another, often by including the line in the caption as backup vocals. On December 4th, 2014, the Israeli YouTube musician The Living Tombstone released a single based off the plot of FNAF 2, where the chorus of the song references the main antagonist, known as the purple guy, describing him as the man behind the slaughter. The video received over 92 million views in 6 years, but with the song now having 214 million views in 8 years. Although I will admit that they still have the description labeling the FNAF series as Scott Cawthorne's creation and not Scott Cawthon's, but oh well. I've even had my own version of this meme where I posted a picture to my Instagram story of myself holding a blank piece of paper and smiling, and someone on that piece of paper put "the man behind your daughter." I've never been prouder, honestly. That was like that won that meme Monday or whatever it was. Should I do more of that? That was funny. I should do more. And ultimately, in at number 2, hacked animatronics. Assuming Gregory is client 46, which is kind of required for this list, he's also guilty of hacking the animatronics, as we learned multiple times throughout his sessions. The only issue I have now is why is he hacking the animatronics? Like, he definitely had a purpose, since to quote Disc 16, what I understand is that the glitch stopped being a glitch and turned into an intentional set of subroutines that were aimed at creating the same thing the glitch created. Those subroutines seem to have come from you. Can you explain that? And I think that I can explain that. There's like a good and an evil motive for this hack, depending on which one they want to be canon. The evil motive would be that Gregory was just working with William and Vanessa, so he hacked the animatronics and made sure the glitch he caused instilled itself into the robots so that his work couldn't be undone, to end up distracting all the employees from what's really going on in the Pizzaplex. The good intention, which is the one I think would push the story further ahead, and is probably the more likely one, would be that he lied about his family to the therapist so that he could keep seeing them, and he would have more time in the company building so that he could hack the animatronics, causing them to malfunction in an effort to get the company or the FNAF AR special delivery project shut down. Hence why the glitch ended up being a closed loop where it was replicating itself over and over so it couldn't be deleted. And finally, in at number 1, kills Vanny. In the Phaser Blast ending, the one where you push the button instead of playing Princess Quest 3, Gregory actually orders the robots to disassemble Vanny. Gregory being willing to kill Vanny is so messed up, especially if this kid is meant to be like 10 or 11, which is what everyone seems to believe, even though I think he's 6. Even then, that's still pretty screwed, but you could argue that he doesn't know any better. But clearly, Gregory does know better. This kid is easily able to destroy all 3 animatronics without a moment's hesitation, and then use their upgrades on Freddy. He is willing to kill Vanny, like I said, despite actually seemingly knowing her, like we see in the best ending, and he burns Trap multiple times in an attempt to stop him from taking control over Freddy. So what the living hell is this kid doing, and how is he so nonchalant about this whole thing? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional and starts crying when he has to talk to a destroyed Freddy. Like, dude, Vanny is literally gushing blood next to you, like right there. Couldn't you have just said like stop or restrain, not freaking disassemble? Like, I get that she said that about Freddy and that it's up in your noggin, okay? But dude, you're not panicking about literally everything else that I've mentioned on this list. Gregory commits murder in one of the endings to this game. What the hell is this kid? Now, based on the points I made last time, there are a few things that we need to go over. Firstly, the breaking and entering does not apply in the actual game, but can come into play later on. He is 100% trespassing though, despite being locked inside. He actively hid inside of Freddy, like in his stomach, instead of leaving the Pizzaplex, which would make this trespassing. Every time I mentioned stealing, like in the merch, the security badges, even Freddy, there's no arguing that. He does in fact steal those. The main argument against these is that, well, he needs to do this to survive, which is blatantly not true. Okay, Freddy informs Gregory that the doors will reopen at 6 a.m. All Gregory needs to do at that point is just stay in Freddy's green room or the area behind it until 6. Nothing else was necessary in order for him to survive. The only problems occur when Gregory tries to get out sooner. He causes his own problems. Vanny only ends up knowing Gregory is in the Lost and Found because she put him there as Vanessa. So, with that logic in mind, Vanny would not have known that Gregory was in Freddy or Freddy's green room. He says that himself. And Vanessa does not check inside Freddy when you approach true while piloting him. So as far as the argument that he needed to do this to survive, no he didn't. Unless he ends up making the problems himself, which would completely destroy his case. So, glad we got that settled. One of the other points of contention was really everything else he did was in self-defense. He had to destroy the animatronics. He had to kill Vanny in the phaser blast ending, otherwise they would have killed him. But while self-defense does sometimes justify killing in order to protect yourself or your loved ones, this is typically used for human-on-human interactions. Human-on-robot interactions wouldn't necessarily fall under self-defense. The animatronics would have to be proven that they didn't intend to harm Gregory, and this could be done using code analysis and camera footage. However, we know that the animatronics were hacked, and whoever Client 46 is did the hacking. Now, if Client 46 is Gregory, which in the context of this world they would know, and the evidence seems to actually point to, the fact that the animatronics were after him could be seen as his fault, since he actually disturbed their original programming. This is also where the footage of him in the Pizzaplex would have come out, particularly the image where he was talking to someone with rabbit ears, thus showing the jury that Gregory and Vanny had a personal relationship, further hurting his case. Gregory by no means had to destroy the animatronics. He chose to do it. Freddy even asks him not to. Gregory didn't do it because he had to. He did it because he wanted revenge. He even says it himself, quote, "They get what they deserve." He was destroying them for revenge and to get the parts for Freddy, not so that they wouldn't hurt him. Since after all, they can still come and kill him after he destroys them. So he does destroy property because he wanted the animatronics to suffer, not because he had to in order to be safe again. Again, could have just hid in Freddy's room or somewhere else. People are also saying that he's homeless, so he has to steal. Firstly, homeless or not, it's still illegal to steal. And secondly, I don't think that he needs Roxy balloons, action figures, and stuffed characters in order to survive another day. I'm not saying that he shouldn't keep himself alive, I'm just saying that what he's doing is illegal, which is true no matter who you are. And anything I included in those numbers was not a story item, and instead the extra items that you do not need in order to beat the game. And you didn't need to steal Freddy at all. There is no justification for him running off with Freddy other than the fact that they're friends. But then again, it's grand larceny and illegal. One commenter decided to try and provide legal defense for Gregory in a lighthearted manner because that was also the point of the video. So I'd like to reply to Jason Ross's defense for the theft of security badges. Quote from his comment, "While this is technically a crime, I think he could make a strong case with any halfways decent lawyer that he did so out of necessity. He stole stuff to help further his attempts to escape unlawful confinement and other crimes committed against him. Stealing those items he stole was necessary to save himself. He would never have survived the night if he didn't steal." First of all, you just outright admitted that it was a crime, which an actual attorney would have torn to shreds. Secondly, like I've been saying, he could have been hiding the entire time, okay? He would have survived if he had just hid until 6. He doesn't escape any sooner than 6 a.m. You progressing throughout the game just makes the time go to 6. He never escapes sooner. He did not have to steal the security badges. Unlawful confinement, as you said, is described as whoever wrongfully restrains a person as to prevent that person to move beyond a certain restricted limit is said to have committed the offense of wrongful confinement. However, nobody restrains Gregory, literally, as well. Like, they don't actually time anything. He gets himself locked in the Pizzaplex. Nobody locked him in there intentionally. The doors close automatically at midnight, and he had plenty of time to leave, but didn't, and he chose to climb inside Freddy, which also ruins your argument against trespassing, which was also wrongful confinement. And for all intents and purposes, in the eyes of the law and any outsiders, Vanessa was actively trying to help him. There are recordings of her claiming to have called the police, which would have been verified certainly, but even if she had called them and claimed something else, the record of her calling 911 would be there. Most of Ross's case relies on unlawful confinement, however, staying in somewhere and then wanting to leave does not constitute unlawful confinement. And to the public, Vanessa was trying to help get him home, but he was avoiding her. We know that she was trying to kill him, but the public doesn't. Now for the biggest issue that everyone seemed to have with this list, the one that I'm sure y'all clicked on this video for. The claim that killing Vanny was murder and not self-defense. And this claim is really the reason I wanted to make this video, because I can't reply to every single comment that was referring to this, okay? Self-defense can be a defense to an assault, battery, and criminal homicide because it always involves the use of force. Most states have special requirements when the defendant uses deadly force in self-defense. Deadly force is defined as any force that could potentially kill. An individual does not have to actually die for the force to be considered deadly. Examples of deadly force are the use of a knife, gun, person, vehicle, or even bare hands when there is a disparity in size between the two individuals. Or, in this case, the use of animatronic robots to kill Vanny, as Gregory does in the Phaser Blast ending, which would also set a precedent for robots being counted as deadly force. To successfully claim self-defense, a defendant must prove 4 elements. First, with exceptions, the defendant must prove that he or she was confronted with an unprovoked attack. Second, the defendant must prove that the threat of injury or death was imminent. Third, the defendant must prove that the degree of force used in self-defense was objectively reasonable under the circumstances. And fourth, the defendant must prove that he or she had an objectively reasonable fear that he or she was going to be injured or killed unless he or she used self-defense. The model penal code defines self-defense as justifiable when the actor believes that such force is immediately necessary for the purposes of protecting himself against the use of unlawful force by such other person on the present occasion. Okay, so I'm willing to admit that the attack was certainly unprovoked. Vanny did not need to come after him in order to get him out of the Pizzaplex. However, that second issue, the proof of threat of injury or death was imminent, is where things get complicated. At no point in the game does Vanny directly threaten Gregory with any words. Her voice lines include, "See you soon," "Disassemble Freddy," "There you are you having fun yet?" "Laughter," and "Let's have some fun." While menacing, none of these involve a direct threat. At no point in the game does she brandish a knife or even send the security bots after Gregory to disassemble him. She only sends the 3 main ones to collect him, who also make no appearance in this ending, therefore do not count. Yes, when she catches us we get a game over screen, but that's just us losing the game. That isn't necessarily us being killed. Us thinking that we get killed is simply an assumption because we don't see what happens next. However, in this case, since we made it to the end, Gregory had never been caught by Vanny. While yes, she does end up destroying an animatronic, it was just an animatronic. That's not really a threat on Gregory. Now, let's skip point number 3 for a minute and then move on to point number 4. That the defendant must prove that he or she had an objectively reasonable fear that he or she was going to be injured or killed unless they used self-defense. While yes, Gregory is a child, or seemingly a child, who would have a more extreme view of the world, he literally spent 6 hours running and hiding from Vanny, where he ended up surviving. In fact, he was right at the Pizzaplex door to leave, but Instead of leaving, he chose to go after Vanny, thus turning this act of possible self-defense into a possible act of vigilantism, or even turning Gregory into the aggressor. He and Freddy went to confront Vanny. He says himself maybe that they can catch her in her room at Phaser Blast. Gregory could have left and survived, but chose not to, meaning that he cannot claim self-defense in an altercation that he created. And now for the final point. The defendant must prove that the degree of force used in self-defense was objectively reasonable under the circumstance. Now, being a child, there is a leeway as to what he would deem reasonable force, but in this case, it is absolutely not reasonable force. We see how destroyed Freddy is after he gets disassembled, okay? His chest and torso are gaping open. He had his insides ripped out. And then, he even ends up, dying in an animatronic sense, even though his body and his head have been shown to work separately. And then, Gregory orders the same thing done to Vanny, a human, who would be alive as the animatronics ripped her ribs and intestines from her body. Does that sound reasonable to you? Because killing in self-defense is easiest to claim when the death you cause is quick or painless. But Vanny suffered, and suffered hard. Even criminals on death row do not get this treatment. A serial killer with more kills than Vanny would just get the simple 2-dose lethal injection, where the first dose actually is intended to dull the pain of the second dose. Under absolutely no circumstances would Vanny being torn apart so badly that the comic panels won't even show it be considered the proper amount of force. Especially when he could have said anything to stop or break or even kill. He could have just said kill. This is absolutely over the top, especially given that Gregory seems to have known her if he is indeed Client 46, which is also hinted at during the Princess Quest ending, but since that's a different ending, that doesn't really count here. Which, if he was Client 46, that would have appeared in court. So what kind of charges and juvenile time is Gregory facing because of this? Well, if Gregory had Mac Murdock as a lawyer, let's say, or someone who's also a really good lawyer, they could possibly argue that this would rather be manslaughter than murder. However, Gregory knows what disassemble means, so an argument that this was an accident would be very tough to pull off. But looking at the minimum sentence, there are 3 possible outcomes for how he'd be treated. 1. The child is so young or mentally incompetent to not understand what they've done and are excused for criminal and civil liability from their actions. Not the case for Gregory, who knew full well what was going on the entire time throughout this game. 2. The child is old enough to understand what they have done, but not old enough or lacking in evidence of sufficient premeditation to charge them as an adult, so they are charged and tried as juveniles, which could be the case for Gregory and is the most likely outcome. And then 3. The child is old enough to understand what they have done and there is evidence of planning and premeditation such that they can be deemed to have acted as an adult might, and they are charged as an adult, with the exception that minors may not be sentenced to death. Now, this could be the way that the courts decided to go, since after all, Gregory did intend on confronting Vanny, since he could have left the Pizzaplex but instead went after her. If he is Client 46 as well, the images of him breaking into the Pizzaplex before could be interpreted as premeditation, especially if he was investigating the Pizzaplex because of Vanny. The state could also argue that his intention was always to kill her. So, with these rules in mind, we will look at a minimum and maximum sentence. The minimum would be a manslaughter charge. However, unlike murder, manslaughter does not carry an automatic sentence of life imprisonment. It remains, however, an opinion for the court. But looking at the situation, things wouldn't look too good for Gregory. A 9-year sentence, which is not uncommon, would allow the offender to be paroled after serving 3 years of their sentence. If a firearm is involved in the offense though, a minimum sentence of 4 years is required. And while the weapon was not a firearm, it could be argued that since she was a distance from him that it could also be considered similar. So at least Gregory would be looking at 3 to 9 years for manslaughter. If he was charged with murder, however, he would absolutely be tried as an adult. And since this is the worst case, we'll go with first-degree murder since the court could consider this planned and deliberate. Those convicted of first-degree murder all receive the same sentence: life imprisonment with parole eligibility after 25 years. A 20-year-old convicted of first-degree murder will be eligible for parole at the age of 45, and if they behave themselves, then they're likely to receive parole. But considering Gregory's personality and your comments on that top 10 video, I doubt that he'd admit responsibility, show remorse. He doesn't seem like that kind of person. Although after 25 years, he may start looking at things differently, with new eyes, if you will. This is also if he ends up actually aging because he's a real human and not a robot like we're all thinking. And if he doesn't age, a whole new investigation is gonna happen. So let's not get into that. In at 10, Sky Daddy Scott. Yeah, this is at the top of the list because frankly, this isn't really a meme in the FNAF community. More just on this channel, okay? But during the pandemic, I started referring to Scott Cawthon as Sky Daddy Scott, since he was in essence the god of FNAF, being, the creator and all that. But this started one random video when I asked him to actually let me help out in making a real FNAF, and I did address him as Sky Daddy Scott. There's not much else to it. but since then, I've used it many more times. There's not really much else to discuss about the topic. But yeah, Sky Daddy Scott, please put me in the FNAF movie at some point, or even just as a reference, because I've suffered a lot for this series. Or maybe not, because apparently we're known for getting people mad over the top 10 worst FNAF fan games video, which was very clearly a joke. I don't know why you people are gonna take us seriously after we made the top 10 tastiest FNAF animatronics. This whole channel is basically a comedy channel now, okay? These are all jokes. This video is also a joke. We're not serious. God. I'm gonna make another one of those videos, but then put everyone's favorite fan games. In at 9, Vent Gregory. Gregory, do you see that small vent on the floor? Have you heard of Among Us, Gregory? You need to vent. I know it will be hard for you to be sus, but I know you can do it, Gregory. This meme was all over the fanverse internet over the time, or after the time when Security Breach had just released, and it was kind of resurged when it was coming out on Xbox. The instance this is revolving around is obviously when you're in the stage section of the game where you're guiding Freddy through the doors after he gets his second wind. When Roxy and Monty are pounding on the doors and you can shock them with the buttons, and then Vanny's watching you and you have a timer. Yeah. To get out of that room, Freddy makes his way to a vent beneath you and then tells you to jump in once he pulls the grate off, which in the scene where this meme generates from, obviously. The joke comes from the venting mechanic in Among Us that only imposters could do, which is why the term sus was repopularized when the game went big over in November of 2020, despite the game releasing in 2018. I remember that very well. We were all about Among Us at that point. We even took a break from FNAF to do it, so yeah. In at 8, Daco meme review. Doggo's meme review is oddly enough a meme within itself. For the purposes of this video, let's talk about some of the memes that have come from Doggo, like the YouTuber. On September 16, 2020, while he was watching a live stream for PlayStation 5, he was shocked that a trailer of the new FNAF game Security Breach was finally out. At first, Doggo didn't actually believe that it was FNAF, even though it was literally an official PlayStation event, until he saw a cutout of Monty, one of the you know who Monty is. After seeing the cutout, he overreacted for almost a minute and then actually ended up almost fainting. After this reaction, memes started to trend about his eccentricness. Doggo also ended up getting into a friendly competition with Scott Cawthon. The two made a bet for where if he played 50-20 mode in Ultimate Custom Night and gave up, he would have to make a game called FNAF 5 where he praises Scott and goes on about how great he is. If Doggo won, however, he would have won an interview with Scott Cawthon, and for several weeks, Doggo painstakingly streamed 50-20 mode only to constantly fail. However, on July 8th, 2018, Doggo managed to successfully beat 50-20 mode, and upon hitting 6 AM, he broke down screaming and crying with joy live on stream. Sometime later, Doggo got his interview with Scott, and then this is where the whole, like, we know that FNAF 3 was supposed to be the end thing happened. And at 7, steals merch. While yes, Gregory does steal multiple items while we play the game, he's also stolen some stuff prior to the game starting. If you pay attention to his character model and some of the comic panels and various endings, we can see that his shirt and shoes, are at the very least, are Freddy Fazbear themed. They have Freddy's head on them, and considering how this kid has no home, sleeping in a cardboard box at the end of the worst ending, I doubt he could really afford to properly purchase Fazbear Entertainment clothing. And considering how he's breaking in, I feel like it's needless to say that he stole the clothes off of Fazbear's back. This is why they have to keep reopening, otherwise they'd be so bankrupt the current CEO, whoever they are, would end up having to actually also live in a cardboard box. This kid alone is the reason they can never fully close and have to keep reopening. Like, honestly, that's probably the only way them reopening makes sense, aside from them being money hungry who don't care about how many children actually perish for them to live their comfortable lives. In at 6, FNAF World. FNAF World is an indie role-playing video game created by Scott Cawthon, and it was the first official spin-off of the Five Nights at Freddy's series, and the first RPG in the series, and the 5th game overall, although we ignore it now. The game was released for Microsoft Windows on January 21st, 2016, and on Android on January 12th, 2017, but came with unfinished gameplay and a large amount of bugs. Wonder what that's like. Leading to a bad reception overall, and ultimately the decision to remove the game from digital storefronts. On February 8th, 2016, the game was updated and re-released on Game Jolt free of charge. But despite the re-release, the community still ultimately wiped this game from memory, resulting in it living in infamy amongst the FNAF canon. And while the game is written off by most fans, its secret story mode actually puts the pieces in place for us to find the clues in FNAF 3 that unlock the good ending. So I guess FNAF World is still kinda canon, but this is still seen as a meme and something that most of the community, including Scott, wants to forget about. Halfway through into number 5, Vandalism. Not only does Gregory damage multiple vents and vent covers throughout the game, but the main objective of the game is actually a crime. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. Us upgrading Freddy using the parts of other animatronics that we acquire through destructive means is indeed vandalism, or it could be considered destruction of property instead if you wanted to head, I guess, maybe more of a specific route or in that direction. Either way, destroying these animatronics, despite them trying to get to us, is a crime. Technically, we don't know what happens when we get caught by an animatronic. Our screen cuts out before we see any real harm come to us, so we are assuming that we get killed, which is the likely scenario, but it's still merely an assumption. Plus, they're animatronics, so we can't really claim self-defense. I mean, like, I guess it would depend on the jury and the judge as to whether you could claim self-defense or not. Like, yeah, you feared for your life, but does that really call for hitting Roxy with a go-kart, crushing Chica in a trash compactor, and then smashing Monty with a giant bucket? Or could you just have, like, hid inside Freddy's green room the whole time? They could also even use the fact that Freddy was good and helping you as a reason as to why the rest wouldn't have hurt you. So yeah. In at 4, so you're supposed to be on lockdown. Personally, I think this is like my favorite of the FNAF memes, and one that reached a more mainstream audience than the other ones thanks to the TikTok algorithm. But unfortunately, despite never having talked about FNAF on my TikTok until this point, I still had to deal with this scene from Security Breach where Gregory hides in the med booth while Vanessa yells at Freddy. The meme, however, comes from what Freddy says after Vanessa tells him that he should be on lockdown. They go from screaming "Vanessa!" 2, but Vanessa, I'm a material girl, and everything in between. And yes, I did end up making a couple myself. My favorite one being Officer Vanessa. I was just looking up Chica Rule 34, because let's be honest, if it exists in this world, there is almost certainly art for it in the FNAF universe as well. Hell, there's probably someone on Etsy making like a Chica themed flashlight. And yes, I said flashlight, like as in one for illuminating dark areas, you nasties. And the other one. But you know what, in reality, the meme still isn't entirely dead, since the whole Vanessa one pops up on my For You page every now and then. And you know what, it's kind of annoying. No, it's very annoying. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, grand larceny. Stealing a boatload of trinkets, it's fine. Assuming that we gave a pass to Gregory, okay? He still commits grand larceny, which in the US is typically seen as stealing anything with a combined value of $400 or more, or something that would cost over $400 to replace in a reasonable amount of time. If we ignored the 87 collectible prize boxes found throughout the game, which would easily equal over $400, he still steals Freddy at the end of the game! In multiple endings, Freddy and Gregory leave without a care in the world, including the canon ending. And before you say, Connor, I'm calling BS, Freddy chose to leave with Gregory in those endings. Freddy is a robot. He is an animatronic. He cannot physically make that choice. He is property of Fazbear Entertainment. He is not a living being. He has no rights. He is an object in the most literal sense of the word, which makes me think that we need to start advocating for animatronic rights now. I mean, Freddy didn't consent to Gregory climbing inside him the first time, so Gregory in theory should be getting charged with a whole lot more than just grand larceny for stealing Freddy. And if you tell me that you don't think replacing Freddy in a reasonable amount of time would cost more than $400, I need you to leave this video. Thank you. He would probably be the most expensive one to replace, I'm sure. Penultimately, in at number 2, I always come back. I Always Come Back was really a meme before the line was even uttered in the series. First being introduced in FNAF 3's trailer with the line, if he will come back, he always does, and then getting the now iconic line of I always come back in FNAF Ultimate Custom Night. Springtrap or Scrap Trap or Burn Trap or whatever trap he will end up returning at some point or another. And while the meme is frustratingly accurate, I want it to stop, okay? I've said multiple times how he needs to stop coming back and just actually die. It's like the games are a toxic ex and William just for some reason can't stay away because he's getting lonely. But then again, that's what Boloro was for, I suppose. I want Afton to die and stay dead for good, okay? I've expressed this in countless videos, and like, I feel like a rich mother who's donated to a school that she wants her son to get into, okay? I've made so many FNAF videos that I feel like maybe I should have some input. Like, just kill him off and let me be a simp over the baddie Vanny, please. And finally, in at number 1, you knew it was coming, Buff Helpie. This meme created by Thominius_ on Twitter is just absolutely cursed. Buff Helpie was made for Daco's Five Nights at Freddy's meme review series and first appeared in episode 2. And since then, it is like, oh god. He made a joke in the video where he pretends to be terrified of it, and then people started sending him tons of memes about Buff Helpie, and it only has since spread from there, leading to Buff Helpie even getting his own spin-off game. Yeah, he even has his own Urban Dictionary page that labels him as a, let's say, traitor to his country who loves stalking the YouTuber Daco and somehow always makes his way into Daco's FNAF meme reviews, followed by the use of the term in Buff Helpie is best boy. And this entire thing was posted by Buff Helpie enthusiast. And you know what? Buff Helpie has also haunted me. I hadn't seen any Daco meme reviews, okay? So I was luckily oblivious to this meme. However, people just started randomly sending it to me on Instagram, and since then, it's kind of scared me. It's certainly better than what some other people have been sending me, but I mean, like, it's not the best thing I've been sent either.